Hey there guys, welcome to part 2 of the Ducttapestuff shoe tutorial. Basically this is the second part of the video for on how to make the shoes. If you guys found this video by accident or something like that, if you clicked on it by accident, definitely check out part 1 over here if you haven't already seen that, because obviously you're going to have no idea what you're doing if you just clicked on this one first and didn't watch part 1. So definitely check it out first and then you can watch this part here. So basically what we're going to do now is work on the sides of the shoe as well as the back. And at this point, both of your shoes should look less like this, which you can take your scissors now and you can trim that 1/2 inch lip all the way around, so that makes sure that it's pretty much all 1/2 inch. So remember we had those points that were sticking up, which you can see here. We're just going to trim all those off to make sure that most of the trim is just roughly 1/2 inch high all the way around. Definitely don't trim so much that you cut down on that 1/2 inch. You just want to make it somewhat just 1/2 inch all the way around. Don't worry about if it sticks up just by a little bit. It's just a rough cutting is all you really need. So we got that stuck aside. Now we're going to work on the sides of the shoe and the back. So let's get started on that. Alright, so to make the side parts of the shoe, you first need to determine how far you want the shoe to go up on your ankle. Because remember, we're making high-top shoes, so they're going to go up fairly far on your ankle. To do that, you're going to need your ruler, and you can just line up straight like this. And you want to decide, if your foot was here, sitting in this, how far would you want the shoe to go up on your ankle? And definitely, you can slip this on your foot, make sure that it fits, and then you can take like a ruler there and then measure how far you want it to go up. For me, it was about 6 inches, which is right about here. So if you can imagine a sheet that goes up to about there, and that's where my ankle is going to end up, and that's where the end of the shoe is going to be. So 6 inches is how high I want it. That's about a good rule of thumb. I'd say it's probably not going to be too much, probably 5.5, 5 inches maybe for some of you, but 6 inches is pretty good for me. And basically what we're going to do is make a sheet of tape that's 6 inches high, like I just showed you, but we're also going to make it fairly long. We're going to make it about, if we're measuring from the start of the toe here, right where that edge is, to about where the heel begins, starts to curve, it's about 8.5 inches. So we're going to make a sheet of tape that's, let's see, it was 6 inches high and 8.5 inches wide. So we're going to start on that now. So by sticking a whole bunch of 8.5 inch strips together, I now have my sheet of tape, which is 8.5 inches long and 6 inches high. Now remember, the measurements are going to be different depending on what size shoe you're making, but remember I wanted 6 inches high, so if you want to keep that measurement, it's definitely going to be 6 inches high, or 5.5 inches, or 5 inches, or whatever you like. But the length here was judged from the end of the beginning of the toe here, where it starts, to about where the heel starts to curve. So remember that, whatever that's going to be the measurement on your shoe from those 2 points there. So measure that out, and that's how long you want to make your sheet. Now here's where it starts to get really complicated, because basically what you're making is not exactly an exact, it's more of a curved pattern. I'm not sure if you see most of the high top shoes, but most of them actually look like this. At least the sides of them do. And this is like a paper template that I cut out because I've been making a few shoes already, but this is more or less the pattern that you're going to be making. And obviously, you won't have this in front of you, so you're going to have to actually free draw it for your first time, but this is more or less what it looks like. There is going to be a little bit of wasted tape, especially on this one, but once you get one that you want, you will be able to make the exact same thing and then cut back on some of the strips. So basically what you're going to do is, just by looking at this, what you're going to do on your sheet that you have, you're going to come up, it's roughly about 1 inch, and that's when you're going to start curving. So you're going to come up about 1 inch on your sheet here. You're going to curve up, and then you're just kind of bottom out with the curve, kind of make it a little more straight across the sheet, and then curve up again towards the end here. At some point you want to stop, like on this point here. This template is a little bit bigger than the sheet, but that's alright. You want to stop there, and then you want to cut straight across like this. Now bear in mind, this is the template that I've been using so far. Obviously if you're making a different size shoe and you want it to be exactly 6 inches high, you would start up here, curve a little bit more, and come all the way to this part up here. So let me show you how to do that. You're going to start at the exact same spot, but say I wanted to go a little bit farther. So I want to go curve like this, and then just curve and swoop up all the way like this. And don't worry too much about the pen marks, because you can just rub those right off if you make a mistake. So that's going to be the end of the shoe right there. That's going to be where my ankle is going to end up. So there's a couple different ways of doing it, but you definitely want this kind of rounded shape, which I have here on the paper, for your shoe when you do eventually, take the pen and mark it down on the sheet and then eventually cut it out. So do that step now. Definitely, erase some of the marks so you don't get confused if you keep doing it, but just keep drawing until you find that part that you like, and then you'll be able to cut it out and work on it for your shoe. So do that step now. So this is more or less what it's going to look like after you've cut it out, and obviously there was a little bit of the wasted tape here, which you can see, but you will be able to cut back on that when you make your second piece, because you'll have this piece to know exactly how wide to make the strips and stuff like that. So now what you can do is you can take this and you can kind of just model it up against your shoe here. You want this end to end up right about there at the point, and then obviously this is going to just stretch around the back. So now you can kind of start to see your shoe take shape more or less. This is going to curl in like this, and then obviously we're going to make one on the other side which is going to curl the other way, and then the tongue will be in between to kind of fill up the gap there. So before you actually attach this to the side, once you get one that works and you think it's going to work, I would definitely duplicate this sheet before you attach it and then try to guess the measurements from there. So we're going to make a few more strips and we're going to duplicate this exact piece right here, which should be pretty simple because obviously it's already cut out, very easy to trace and cut out. So let's do that now. So like I said before, since we know the measurements of this piece here, we can now waste significantly fewer strips of tape by cutting them out to be the shape of your shoe here. So if you want to make your strip smaller as you go along, as you go up, you can easily do that. What you do now is we're going to take our pen and we're going to just very simply just mark it down here. And you shouldn't go off the tape at all because you cut it out to be exactly the same size. So you got that just like that. Now we're simply going to take our scissors here and then just cut it right out. And obviously you want to make sure these two are exactly identical, because any little difference is probably going to mess you up a little bit later, especially if you're trying to do this for your first time, because you want to have as few problems as possible, as few little things that can mess you up as possible. So just trim a little bit to the end here. So now we have our two pieces that should be exactly identical. So now what you can do is you can take your shoe here and you can stick your foot in there. Definitely always try this at every step of the way to see if it works. You're going to line them up directly on the sides. Remember, with that point coming to the end of the toe there. Fold them in, see how well it works. Remember, the shoelaces are going to be bridging the gap in between, as well as the tongue, which is going to be inside the shoe there. So definitely make sure that works. And then once you're very confident that these two are going to work on the sides, with a spot on with obviously another sheet on the back here, you're actually going to put these aside. We're actually going to put one of them aside, and you're going to make two more of these, because remember, you're making two pairs of shoes, so you need 4 total. So I would definitely put one of those aside, keep one, and definitely make 2 more of these sheets here. If you make sure you're absolutely confident that's going to work, and then you're able to put it into your shoe. So take time, make 2 more of these. That's for your other shoe, and then we'll actually show you how to attach them onto this one here. So do that step now. So now the time has come to actually attach the side pieces of the shoe to the shoe here. Now basically this is where that 1/2 inch trim on the cardboard is finally going to come into play. So basically what I did here is I cut out a strip of tape that's the length of the bottom here. For me it was 8.5 inches. It's probably going to be different for yours. So you're just going to peel that up. You're going to stick it down so that you overlap by, it's usually about 1/2 inch or so, maybe 1/4 inch should be fine as well. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pull this over here, and you want this end here, right where the sticky part begins, where that line is, you want that to end up right where the cardboard is on the other side of this 1/2 inch mark. So this is going to be a little bit tricky, but basically what you want to do is line it up. Remember, we want this end here to start where the edge of the toe is. So using your cardboard as a basis and that front part, you're just going to hold it right where it should be, and then just stick a little piece down, and that should be enough to hold it. And then once you get most of it stuck down, you can just roll it around the bottom. Remember, don't worry about the creases. No one's going to see them except the ground you're walking on. So now you should look at it at the bottom. If it has a lot of trouble flexing, you may have applied it too far underneath so that it's actually hitting the cardboard. But as you can tell, that sticky part is right about where the cardboard starts, and that is exactly what you want. So now we're going to flip the whole thing over, and we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side here. So once you've got the one side done, we're obviously going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So you got your second side here of the shoe. Took another 8.5 inch strip. Remember, the measurements are going to be different for you. 1/2 inch on the bottom, and obviously this is a mirror image of the one over there, so you know you're not going to stick it on exactly the same way, so it's going to look like that. And then basically what we're going to do is exactly the same thing that we did on the other side. We're going to line up the front here with where that toe begins, usually where that point is. And we're just going to line up on the side. Remember, you want that sticky side to start right where the cardboard is. Stick a little bit of the back of it down. And this is the right side of my right foot, so that's obviously the more curved part. So that's probably going to be the more difficult piece because of those more curves are probably going to mess you up a little bit. And then just stick it down just like this. Now here's the very important part. When you take these two flaps and you fold them up, you do want to make sure that they are exactly the same height and they are arranged the same way. So if you can take it here and you can arrange, just look straight on, and if you're holding the flaps up exactly the same way and they do come to exactly the same height, then you know you did it pretty well. So you can just stick it down, and then if you look also across this way, you shouldn't be able to see anything because this one, they should be exactly the same, so you won't be able to see like anything sticking out. If you do, just peel off either one or both of them and then just reapply it again. Just be real careful when you peel it off, and remember, since there's duct tape all the way on the bottom here, you're not going to have any cardboard and anything that you're going to peel up, so you should be pretty simple to just rearrange this until you get it to be the right size that you want. So now we're going to work on the back part of the shoe. So now we're going to work on making the back part of the shoe, and that's going to connect these two side pieces here. To do that, we're going to make a sheet of tape that's as high as the sides here, and obviously the sides here were 6 inches high because we used that as our measurement, so we're going to make a sheet of tape that's 6 inches high, and we're going to make it as long as the sides here. You want to make it pretty much long enough so that it's obviously able to stretch around here and connect the two like this. So I went with about 6 inches or so. You pretty much can take your ruler here and just kind of measure just how much, and obviously you can overlap by a little bit. It's always easier to make it a little bit longer, and then you can obviously just stretch it a little bit farther around and stick it down, or just trim a little bit off. So you got that about there. So now obviously what we're going to do now is we're going to connect the two sides here, and then we're pretty much going to have more or less the exact basis of our shoe. So let's do that step now, connecting it here on the sides and on the bottom. Alright, so I have my first 6-inch strip here, so I'm going to turn this sideways a little bit, because remember we are connecting it on the sides. So we're going to take overlap it by about 1/4 of an inch or so. Flip the whole thing over, just like this. Now basically what we're going to do is we're going to line it up on the side here, and you definitely want to come to the very top here, which is where it ends up with the side of the shoe here. So you can probably just wrap that piece around and stick it all the way down, just like this. It should end up basically right around where the bottom part of the 1/2 inch trim that you put on the cardboard is. So now we're just going to wrap this around, and it looks like it's going to come out just about perfectly. So now we're going to take another 6-inch strip and stick it down right there. So there we go, we have it connected on both sides here. Now basically this is a pretty tricky part, just because trying to wrap that around and then stick it down, especially when these two are trying to fly out this way, it can be a little bit difficult. So if you do mess up, just carefully peel it off and then just keep retrying it until you get it. You might end up coming a little bit on an angle here. You can kind of see it's higher on this side than it is on this side. To do that, obviously this side was applied a little bit higher. You can obviously just take that right off and then just reapply it a little bit farther below. I'm not going to worry too much about it, just because I can kind of easily correct it later. But basically this is what you're going to end up with here. If you get a little bit of extra on the top here, you can just trim that right off, and then you can obviously just cinch it together, and that's pretty much obviously where your ankle is going to end up, and that's where your leg is going to go. So if you have this is too far out, you could just reapply it and stick it farther in on the side here. Or if you want it to be a little bit wider, you can go out a little bit more and apply it farther out here, and that'll give you a little more room inside there. So now we're going to work on the tongue, which is going to go inside the shoe, and pretty much is going to go underneath the laces. So let's work on that step now. Okay, so now we're going to work on making the tongue part of the shoe. So if you guys don't really know what the tongue part is, usually that's the part that goes underneath your laces on any shoe, and just cinches up around your ankle so that the shoe stays on your foot. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to make, it's pretty much usually just a long strip of tape that we're going to stick in the middle here. Now for the width of the strip of tape that we're going to make, it's going to be about the width of your toe piece here. So if you look over, it's about 4 inches, which is right here to about right here. So we're going to make it 4 inches wide, and we're actually going to make it the strip as high as it's going to come to the top part of the shoe here, usually a little bit before that. So if you look, it is on a curve, so we're going to add a little bit to it for that. It's roughly 7.5, 7 3/4 inches. So we're going to go right around there for making the sheet here. So let's get started working on that sheet now. Alright, so here I have my tongue part of the shoe made. Basically, like I said, since it was 4 inches across the toe, I cut out a whole bunch of strips that are 4 inches long and then stuck them together until I have a total height of 7.5 inches. Roughly, that's what we were going for. Remember, the measurements are going to be a little bit different depending on what you're making for yours. Basically, I cut out one more 4-inch strip, and this is how we're going to attach it to the shoe. That is actually the only way that it gets attached to the shoe. So you're just going to flip it up like this, and then basically what we're going to do is just stick it down, so the back of it, like right here, and then we are going to take our shoe here, slide it in just like this, and this will help to cover up a little bit of the sticky parts inside there if you had any left over. And you're just going to apply it so that none of the sticky side is showing right here, and then you just kind of tuck your hand in behind where your toes are going to end up and kind of just mash it up against the roof of your toe piece here. And you can try to make sure there aren't any wrinkles, but they shouldn't really bother you too much because most of them are going to be fairly small. So now we have our tongue piece made. So now we're going to work on cutting the holes for the laces and putting the laces in. Then we'll pretty much have our shoe. So before we work on the shoelaces, this would be a perfect time to go back to your other shoe and just make all the steps that you needed to do on that one to make sure that it looks just like this one here. You're making the exact same tongue, the exact same sides, anything that you need to wrap up to make sure that the two shoes are identical, and then obviously you can compare them and make sure that they are pretty close together. So now basically what we're going to do is to put on the shoelaces. Now, like I said before at the beginning of the tutorial, I do have a video up on making shoelaces, and it's linked right over here, so you guys want to check out that video. They are really simple to make. You can pretty much figure it out for yourself. Basically, you just take a whole bunch of long strips, cut them together, stick the two strips together, and then just cut out a very long shoelace, and just stick it all together. So that's how much we're going to do it. For cutting the shoelace holes, it's really useful to use an exacto knife, and basically what you do is you fold it together just like this. Usually I start making them generally right about here. You don't want to come right to the end because obviously this is the shoelaces are going to be the part where most of the tugging is going to happen, so you want to make a small little slit there with your exacto knife. And then you want to just duplicate that cut right on the other side here, directly across from it as close as possible. Right over here. Then you want to come up just a little bit more, making sure that you're going back. It's probably about a half an inch or so, and make sure you don't poke yourself or anything, because I did actually do that when I was making a prototype. I did poke myself by accident. You don't want to make them too close, the two holes too close together either, so that when you do thread the shoelaces, that they do rip out completely, so that you have one giant hole for your shoelace. So just keep continuing this process all the way along. So I got 3 on that side, and then lining those up directly across, just like that, and then just coming right over here. And definitely make sure you don't get too close to the edge, but also not too far down as well. Usually about half an inch, somewhere in between quarter of an inch, half an inch is about the right place to go. So do that all the way up to about, a little bit before the start of the ankle pieces here. Lacing them is actually very simple. Once you get yourself started, just take your laces and then just very simply just feed them all through the holes, back and forth, until you get your entire shoe. You probably aren't going to make the shoelaces long enough to make the entire shoe unless you cut it out to be 3 feet or more on the first try. So basically what you can do is cut out a whole bunch of strips that are this length, and then you can just once you get a giant piece like this, you can just attach it by just wrapping it around and making it the exact same length. So that'll make it really simple. So as you know, the tongue is actually sitting inside the shoe at the moment, so it's going to stay down there until you actually slip your foot in. So you actually don't need to worry about that until you actually get the shoe on. So just lace your stuff back and forth just like this, and eventually we will get all the way to the end and we'll be able to see how it works. Alright, so if you are really eager to try it on when you do get it complete, I would suggest you probably don't lace it all the way up, because unlike normal shoes, you're probably going to have to undo some of the laces to get these on every time, just, you know, because they're going to be fairly cinched up. So I would undo some of the laces and then just obviously just slip your foot in there, and then, you know, you can just, you know, just go from there. You know, just tie it up, tie these up just like you would tie a normal shoelace, and they actually hold pretty well, so they should, you know, shouldn't come undone at all. I did notice something actually. I was doing this. I don't think I actually showed you guys how to connect this bottom piece. It's connected on the sides here, but for the back here, it actually slides around a little bit. That's perfectly alright, because I'm actually going to be decorating this thing. So if you guys want that white trim that was all the way around on my other shoes, you're just going to come. It's probably about half inch above, just like, you know, the half-inch trim, which I'm going to put on the side here. And you'll notice we're actually going to go back to the cutting again, except this is actually going to be much easier, because now we're just cutting to stick it down rather than to actually, you know, make sure that it all fits. So just peel that one piece down, then that piece, then that piece, and then that piece there. And once again, don't worry too much about the stuff on the bottom. If you get a little crazy stuff, you know, you can just trim that piece off there, and then you pretty much have your white trim all the way around. Obviously, you can decorate this to any color you want to. I have obviously my purple ones over here, which, if they don't take everything with them, I can show to you. So here's my white one here. I did decorate a little bit of the toe here, so obviously if you want that to be all white, you can just apply a strip right across and then a little bit of purple there. Let's see what else to do. There's a lot of cool things you can do. Definitely when you make your other shoe, you want to make sure they are exactly the same. So, you know, just compare the size of the laces to make sure they're the same, the toe, the top up here to make sure that that is the same, so it does cinch up the exact same way. You might have to do a little trimming straight across, you know, just to make sure they are the same. So that's, depending on how you make your shoes, that is definitely what you're going to have to do, depending on how well you made them. Another thing I did earlier was I cut out that little piece here for the toe to make it more rounded. Like I said before, I was going to be decorating, so I'm actually going to take a giant white strip and stick it right over top of that, and that'll seal that little hole closed there, so that won't have to I won't have to worry about that at all. So that's pretty much how to make duct tape shoes. I mean, I'm sure this was a very extremely long tutorial to sit through, but that's pretty much how to make them. It is a very difficult tutorial, like I said before, a very difficult project to make, so I'm not sure if you guys are going to get on your first try, but definitely just take your time, follow the steps, definitely duplicate your other shoe as you're going along. I can't stress that enough to make sure that they are the same, and basically, you know, just go crazy with it. It's a lot of fun to make. I will talk briefly about foam. You can put foam inside your shoes if you want to, like, make your cardboard and then cut out an exact sheet, just like your foot imprint, and then stick a piece of foam on top. That'll give you a little more support, as well as give the shoe a little more support, because it'll have that extra foam piece at the bottom. You can also, I think what I noticed, like when I was walking around using the prototypes, is that a lot of dirt and dust does get stuck to the bottom here, especially if you're using white, it's going to show up. You can actually take a piece of foam, cut it out on the bottom here, and then just attach it all the way around, and that'll, you know, since there's fewer sticky parts to get caught on, hopefully most of the dirt won't get stuck on that. Plus, you can always, like, you know, rip the pieces around the side off, apply new pieces, and that'll obviously it'll take all the dirt with it when you do that. So that's how to make a duct tape shoe. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the tutorial. It's been a tutorial I've been wanting to do for a very long time now, so hopefully you guys will enjoy this, make all kinds of different shoes, and hopefully you won't get too frustrated, but just keep at it. Perseverance is the key. Practice makes perfect. Just go at it and really get this stuff done. So it's a lot of fun to make. So take care, guys. I'll see you guys next time on the channel. Subscribe if you want to. Facebook fan page, all that good stuff happening over there, as well as the blogger account. Catch you next time, guys.